Good evening and welcome to the work session of January 26th, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. I'd just like to note for the record that all board members are present, and we do have two department heads here tonight at the meeting. We have our Director of Plan Engineering, Mark Valentine, and our Director of Developmental Services, Carrie Ivers. Thank you. And that's Director of Planning and Engineering.
Engineering's fine.
Okay. Before you have the minutes of January 12th, 2022, which was our first work session. Are there any questions about them? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Councilperson Cole, second by Councilperson Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all approved. Moving on, we do not have any public hearings scheduled for this evening. And also monthly reports, I do want to mention that they are not due until February 2nd. So you'll be seeing those, we'll be talking about those at our February 9th work session. And all the reports were received for January, so you should have received those. Okay. And again, no public hearings. We do have one guest on our agenda tonight. That's Gary Smith with a request for rezoning. And Carrie, hoping you can set the stage for us.
I can. There are three properties that Gary Smith had been in communication with Jim Costello probably a couple of months ago, initiated the conversation with the Comprehensive Master Plan Committee, who is providing feedback and input with respect to prospective or requested rezoning applications. Gary's here tonight to answer any questions and talk about it. Initially was the application that he submitted is requesting a rezoning from what is now RA2 to RR1, and that was the zoning request that the Comprehensive Master Plan felt most comfortable with moving forward. I think the applicant would have accepted any higher density residential rezoning request, but the RR1 was the one that was most comfortable for the Comprehensive Master Plan Committee.
Okay, well, we could invite Mr. Smith up if you would like to take a seat, just to be here in case that we have any questions.
Evening.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you wanted to add to what Carrie had said?
No, she pretty much filled it in well. We were just looking to rezone it to R1 to match the properties that surround us, the new development, housing development going on Jackson Road and other properties along Northrup Road. Right now, as it is, it's just a hedgerow that separates the R2 and R1, which I don't know how that came to be, but we're just asking to match what's around us.
Okay. And just for the record, too, this has been brought to the Comprehensive Plan Committee, which is still in their final stages of preparing the master plan.
They are. They do have a memo that they've prepared related to rezoning requests that have come through or rezoning recommendations that the board has made recommendations related to, so I'll make sure I circulate that to this board so that you have it for your records and review as part of these applications that are coming before us. It's my position that I would recommend that the town board, if it's so amenable, would move forward with setting a public hearing to hear public comment and input on the requested rezoning.
Are there any questions from board members? I know it's a fairly straightforward application, and we do need to go through the hearing process. I know, Mr. Smith, you mentioned that several of your neighbors were also interested in rezoning.
At the time when I was talking with Jim Costello, that letter that we just sent in, at that time there were some other people that would possibly be interested in it, but we haven't talked since. So
right, and they would need to make a separate application.
Right. Our only concern is our own property.
Correct. Okay, great. All right, well, Seeing no other questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing on this, for these two properties.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilperson Draw, a second by Councilperson Ockenden to set a public hearing to rezone 1234, 1250, and 1258 Northrup Spring, correct? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And I believe, did we set this, can we set this for,
So what we can do is
February
we'll put that in the resolution that the board will take up next week, and we can look at the schedule to make sure that we're not overloading any one meeting with hearings and/or public hearings for any of the matters that are coming before the board.
great. So the next steps then is that you'll work with Carrie, and she will set the date for the public hearing, or for the resolution. It'll be brought back here, and we'll set a resolution for a public hearing. And Carrie will kind of walk you through that process.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on to action items. We have Shannon is not here. You're Shannon?
I'll be Shannon this evening.
Okay, great. And this is a request for a hold harmless agreement at 19 Stone Hollow Drive.
Yes. So Shannon, Ms. Barg has been working with the residents in that area. They do have an existing fence, and if you're looking at the plan that's up on the screen, Carrie's highlighting the parcel. They do have an existing easement that runs along the side and the back of their property. On the side, there is a pipe in that area. The back, it's a swale drainage area. They have an existing fence along the rear property line. They're looking to install an in-ground pool, and then with given requirements, you have to have it fenced. So they're looking to complete the fencing in their backyard. Ms. Barg has talked with them, explained the intent of the hold harmless agreement. We've looked at it, not seen any potential impacts to drainage, but with their understanding, if and when we had to get in and there's no other means, we have the right to remove the fence. It's at their cost to remove or to replace the fence at that time. Our only concern, requirement recommendation is when they're working in an area where we have a pipe, we require them to dig it by hand, just to make sure the depth of the fence post and the pipe don't intersect, and we've got a perforated pipe. So that'll be one of our recommendations coming back from engineering in PRC is in that area, make sure that they hand dig that to install the fence. So if the board is comfortable, I know she's gone through and had documentation, a letter of intent from the applicants, as well as information to them of what the intent is for the hold harmless agreement.
Right, and I know that the board received a copy of the letter, and also there was a statement that they understand if the fence needs to be moved or removed in order to access the easement, it will be done at their expense. So they are aware of what those ramifications would be.
Yep.
Are there any questions or discussion for Mr. Valentine? Okay, so I think you're looking for a motion to enter
So the
into an
motion
agreement.
would be one for a resolution we'll get in, and then two, it would be an action to allow the supervisor to sign said hold harmless agreement once it's prepared. So we'll prepare a resolution for the board for next week. You'd vote on that, and then subsequent to that, we'd prepare the agreement. The homeowners would sign it, and then the supervisor would sign it. That gets filed at the county. The applicant pays the filing fee, covers our cost. Then it runs with the land. So if and when they sell the house, the next owner inherits that through their deed, that it's part of their property.
Would anyone like to move that?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Lee, second by Councilperson Cole for a resolution, to prepare a resolution, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Barg.
You're welcome.
Now we have action item B, and that's with Carrie. Would you like to read that?
I would love to. I'm so sorry. Can I cheat off of your item B so I can see what I'm doing
Oh, I can
next?
read it if you'd like.
I apologize. No, I should have grabbed one. I had one printed out at my desk. So this is a administrative review of proposed signage. And I will bring it up for you to take a peek at it. So this is, a conditional use permit was issued at this property previously. This is a new photography.
Microphone.
Oh, thank you. So sorry. Do you know how many times I had to tell people to do that? I'm guilty myself right now. So this is proposed signage. The conditional use permit was issued. The signage was one of the conditions that required town board to review and approve prior to them installing. So they're just following up on one of those conditions. And I'm going to show you a couple of different, and I don't want to overwhelm you with images, but there's signage on both sides because this is obviously the corner property. And so the question, they're reusing existing sign equipment, or the actual base of the sign is remaining the same. This is just simply refacing the existing signage.
Okay, so no parameters are changing. It's
Correct.
no
They're not
bigger-
adding
Okay.
new signage to the building. They're simply replacing what had been previously approved and installed
Okay.
to match their new business.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, so I think, do we have to have it go to hearing then?
I don't think
No?
so. I think, my understanding is that this board can vote to approve it administratively at this work session, and a resolution is not required,
Okay. and
as long as you've had an opportunity to review it and provide commentary and
That's how we did
feedback.
The first, I don't think it was called a conditional use permit. It was done, we did administratively.
Oh, it was an administrative.
I'm pretty sure it was because.
You're correct. It was an administrative conditional use permit, but
Yes.
it issued administratively.
Right.
You
so
are
we only
correct.
talked about it here.
At
It was
work
like,
session.
Go ahead and come back to us when you have your signage.
Correct.
So it came back.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, that is
Is this a
accurate.
carryover then?
Right.
Sorry about that.
That's
Yes.
right.
Okay.
I think
Well,
you can just document it in the minutes that the board approved it this night, and I think you should be good.
okay, well, so then we can just do a motion to approve the signage.
I'll move the motion to approve the signage.
I'll second if we need a second.
Okay, motion by Councilperson Cole, second by Councilperson Draw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions, or any opposed?
Nope.
Okay, great. So we'll just note that in the record.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Was this, so this was a carryover then, that,
Yes.
from
It was.
December? Okay.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's why it doesn't sound so familiar. All right, moving on to action item C, special use permit and site plan review for a new building to house a dance studio at 1385 Empire Boulevard in the LaSalle's Landing District.
Yeah, so this is an application that was received. This is a project that had been in discussion through the PRC and received some preliminary comments and feedback. The project is currently under review by engineering. I'll open up a site plan. What we'd be looking for is a resolution to set the public hearing associated with the application. And I'll open one other file so that you can see the elevations. A couple of notes that I will share is at PRC today, we discussed it informally. We have invited the applicant to come to visit with us next week. There are a couple of items that we are going to ask for, either additional information, particularly as it relates to landscape and lighting. That wasn't as clear as it probably could have been on the site plan that was submitted. I'm just going to open up, and you can see, and apologies, I don't know if this is coming in really well in full color. It is a metal building. That was always the plan, and they have, and Mark may have some additional comments he wants to share.
Yeah, this came maybe November, December. They came before the
Right.
board and asked, for the board's thoughts on a metal building. They showed 2 or 3 different samples.
I think it was December, I'm remembering this now, but I don't think Candace has seen it, so we do
So
want to make
they
sure.
had come up with some initial, concept sketches for that, wanted to know the board's thoughts, comfort, with that. And I think the board, with some additional treatments, stone, some wood, some other embellishments on it, had some more comfort level with that. So now they're coming back. They've submitted the site plan. It's currently in review. Obviously, we'll have those comments, technical in nature, to the board, well ahead of the public hearing.
Great. Any Go ahead.
We're also going to be asking the applicant to identify whether or not signage would be required. If so, freestanding, building mounted, so that if they wanted that to be considered all at once, they may have that opportunity to do so. They may or may not be prepared for that at this point, but we're going to at least alert them that signage would be one of the items subject to review as well.
Carrie, would we be able to see that in color? At the
Yes,
next time?
it's not.
Not this time, you don't.
Yeah,
the public hearing?
the elevation is I'm not sure if it's the screen as it's showing up here, but we can certainly clarify for them or have them clarify colors. Certainly, at the night of the public hearing, we can ask if they can bring material samples. That can often really be helpful in demonstrating what the finished product might look like.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Anything else for Carrie? All right, then may I have a motion to prepare a resolution to set a public hearing
For the
for this?
I'll make a motion for the dance studio at 1385 Empire Boulevard, that we set a public hearing for that for as soon as we can.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilperson Draw, second by Councilperson Ockenden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Action item D.
Item D, so this is 2129 5 Mile End Road. The new occupants of the property had communicated with the Building and Code Enforcement Office, Building and Zoning Office, to understand what their options were. They were going to be moving into the home as their residents, and the occupant is wanted to offer music lessons, specifically piano, I believe, but I don't want to isolate it to piano if there are more than one type of instrument being providing lessons for. Initially, the applicant believed they could come in under the customary home occupation regulations, and when the materials were submitted, this is because it's in the Historic Preservation District, it is going to go to the Historic Preservation Board, and upon reviewing the proposed signage, I asked for some clarification regarding sort of the how much of the property, the interior, would be utilized for the home-based business versus the residence. Based on the information that was provided by the applicant, I recommend to the applicant that they complete a conditional use permit application rather than coming forward with a customary home occupation. It's a pretty substantial portion of the interior is going to be dedicated to the lesson, and so this would qualify under the mixed residential and business use. I believe it's I'm going to go off the top of my head, item 15 under 250-5.10 D15, I believe, as one of the conditional uses that's available in the Four Corners District.
It hasn't gone to Historic Preservation Board.
It's on this agenda for February.
Okay, so that's definitely, I wouldn't do anything until it,
Right.
I'd say we table this then until we get the recommendation from them, because
So-
that's the first layer.
Yeah, so one of the things we were thinking about is, because if this was just a simple approval of signage in a customary home occupation, there would be no public hearing. But because I am of the opinion that this is actually, should be a conditional use permit that would require a public hearing through the town board, would the town board be amenable to setting that public hearing so that it helps to move the timeline along? You'll have the comments of the Historic Preservation Board.
I wouldn't support that. I'm thinking along the lines is, I'm looking at that, if that's what they're asking for, I could see a Historic Preservation Board having a big issue with it right off the bat,
Okay.
And I'd really like to hear what they have to say before we go off and set a meeting that, if they don't support it and we already have something scheduled, then it's just like extra work that.
Since we don't know what issues the Historic Preservation Board might bring,
Okay.
we would rather just delay and make sure that all issues are worked out before we do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
As I mentioned to you, I think Historic Preservation will definitely have some feedback about the signage.
Okay.
So if, from what I'm hearing from the board, and I would support it, is, we table this.
Okay.
And I understand about moving things along, I really do, but I also want to give due diligence to the Historic Preservation Board and not have them feel rushed at all.
Okay. I will share with you, the applicant was asking whether they could offer those lessons in their home now, and so I can let them know that they need to wait until this board has taken action. Or I can check with Dick Horowitz to find out what their options are.
Yeah, I would treat those as separate issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this signage laws don't dictate what you can do inside the residence, right?
In this district, because it's a mix of business and residents, potentially, you're offering a service. I think informally, I can check with the town attorney. I understand completely what you're saying.
I think you're right to check with the town attorney,
Okay.
just to be sure.
Yep, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a question? Isn't there a small placard, a signage on that side,
Which
down
side?
from that building on there?
Was that McCord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a spot right now on the side of that house, I believe, right?
Small one.
A small one that there's a signage already there.
It could be replaced, you're thinking? It could
Well, I'm just wondering, because I know they've used it as his business, and
Right.
Right.
I know you can't see it from here, but I believe it's a,
It was a landscape business, and it did have a hanging sign,
Right.
not
Faces
attached.
north,
it does it.
up 5 Mile, I believe, yeah. If you're talking about the McCord
Absolutely.
landscape
Oh, okay.
architect, he had a
Yeah.
piece, he utilized the back of the building
Yes.
for the
right.
landscape, down
Yeah,
Mott's
just-
Lane, so if you go down Mott's Lane on the side,
But it was a fairly
Use that.
good-sized sign at one time, I thought.
I don't know, they rented out at one point for other people. I remember there was a hairstylist in there. And, there's been
Yeah.
yeah, that back little annex was where the
Without signage.
landscape
It's gone
architect business was, and then I know there were some other businesses in the main.
See, it's that little sign that
part of
was
the
up,
building.
hanging out in front.
Oh, right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. I can't remember. if
I
it's
can
still-
barely see that.
Yeah, no. Yes.
But it was, yeah. So it's already there. I mean, unless it's gone. I go by there all the time, but.
Yeah, I know.
So
got
do
to
I.
look.
I know. I'll have to look now tonight.
Right.
Okay.
And, since the town attorney is coming into the building tomorrow, we can really expedite that
Yeah,
pretty quickly.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Then may I have a motion to table this application?
I move that we table this application until we hear further from the Historic Preservation Board.
Second.
Motion by Councilperson Cole, second by Councilperson Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item E.
So I wanted to add in some follow-up discussion for the application for 1776. Apologies for the typo.
Yeah.
And I know-
1776 and 1778.
Just a moment, I know that the applicants are here, if they would like to come to the table.
They are.
Okay. It just helps to have you at the microphone in case we have any questions for you.
I'm sorry?
It helps to have you at the table
Oh,
in
yeah,
case we
sure,
have
certainly.
any
Thank you.
questions for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. So there are probably two things I thought the board would want to talk about at work session tonight. We have received a sign package. This is the business proposing to reuse all of the existing signage on site and reface those structures to have match their business name and their business logo. The only difference, a potential difference, is they are asking about lighting one of the signs on the chimney, and so that's not a requirement, it was just a thought or an idea, and so I shared with the applicant they should provide that information, and I'll pull up those images in a moment. The other issue that came up as a point of discussion during the public hearing and the presentation by the applicant was the concept of storage and potential use of the food truck at the property. And so I thought we would talk about that. Ultimately, the current application before you is for the conditional use permit. You do have the signage as well, so you have the ability to render decision on both the conditional use permit and the signage. The one decision would be whether or not the food truck should or could be part of that conversation or should be handled in a separate application.
Well, as I had mentioned to you, the food truck probably does require a separate hearing. That is really a significant change.
Yep.
I know that there has been a resolution for the storage of a truck in the Four Corners before at Chick Magnet, but that is not for use on site.
Right.
So,
And I think that application may have also, that might have been advertised or at least notified, like, that might have been part of the original application at the time. So I would concur that we can bring the applicant back for a separate public hearing to sort of either expand or amend the conditional use permit to include the food truck, and
Right.
and that could be handled separately from the actual conditional use permit associated with operating the restaurant and the building itself.
I want the other board members to chime in if
No,
they are.
I totally agree, because the food truck is something separate. It's if we grant a food truck, it opens up for others to come in wanting something similar, big trucks in their parking lot behind their property. You know, it opens up something. It's something that, because it would be so significant in the Four Corners, you know, we got to be clear about it, and it needs its own little hearing there to talk about it for everyone to chime in the Four Corners district in particular. And so for that reason alone, I think it's different enough that we need to separate it.
Right. So it's basically just being open and transparent with the community about what is proposed. And because it wasn't advertised with the application as a food truck as well, we want to just go back and make sure that we are alerting the community to that. So thank you for your understanding.
Of course.
Yes.
So I'm pulling up now and you all received this as well electronically, but this is the proposed signage utilizing existing structures on site and existing building-mounted signage locations as well. You'll note I would like to point out, and I'm sort of highlighting this, the sign company indicated or included an awning, but the applicant is not interested in the awning. So that is not part of this application, just to be clear.
So that would be right against.
So this, I don't know if you can see my hand moving around on here,
Yeah.
the cursor. They showed an awning covering the stairs. That is not part of this application. So that was the sign company providing that graphic, but the applicant is not moving forward with that.
Yeah.
You don't like the awning?
Yeah, I wish that would come off,
okay, but-
because you get a better feel for what it
There
looks
is
like.
The
on
audio
There's a
is
black
fine.
awning, yeah.
Black,
Yeah.
the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then here, although if you looked at the graphic without scrolling down, this isn't a design, this is just showing the measurement of the signage. And then I will share with you, or put out on here, this is the proposal for, this is the concept that the sign company provided, showing the front LED lit channel letter for the signage that's mounted on the chimney.
Carrie, what is that front LED lit channel letter, or maybe the applicant would be able to describe that a little better? Is it backlit in the sign itself? Is it a spotlight that shoots on? I'm just curious what.
Honestly, I don't know, because I don't do the signs.
Yeah.
But my understanding is through the back.
Okay.
LED, that's what I understand about it.
Okay, so kind of
Backlit.
contained inside the sign, and it
It reflects the letters, I guess.
okay.
That's what I understand.
Okay. So it's not going to splash over to Liberty Street, it shouldn't?
Well, it'll be just down in the parking lot, right? Really, we'll see it is those parking, people walking into the restaurant.
The business, as you walk into the restaurant, it would show a lit sign.
Okay, and then the other logo would go on the black awning.
No,
No.
No, you're going to remove the awning
No.
completely.
no, the awning stays the way it is.
Oh, okay.
No new
I'm
awning.
sorry.
No new awning.
Okay. Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And the applicant did in his email communicate to the board, and I think I forwarded this directly, that if the lighting on the chimney sign were permitted, that the lighting would be on a timer and it would go off when the business was closed.
So, Carrie, maybe you know, or probably Linda, maybe from some the past, do we have any signs that are lit in the Four Corners district at all?
So I know the lighting on the front sign, the front-facing sign on the hill had lighting on it. I think it was a spotlight.
Yes, a spotlight.
Shining on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's any channel lighting.
We got some in the
There's one
window.
in the Four Corners.
Windows
There's some in the
inside.
windows. There's actually neon signs in the windows.
In the windows,
Do you-
right.
do you know?
Signs, Mark's Pizzeria has the spotlights on their light,
And
on their signs,
Right.
over the awnings.
I guess what I meant, any backlit that would be comparable to this, they would be the neon, right? That would be comparable.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if the neon would be comparable. When I think of channel lighting or the backlit lighting, if you've ever been to, and the color might be different, but the Next Door Grill has that lighting where it's like sort of a shadow behind the letter or behind the sign. So it's sort of like, it's almost like a halo effect. What we could do is ask the sign company to provide the specs, more detail.
Helpful, maybe a comparison to, another sign someplace.
Sure, or an example, like an actual photo of what one would look like in someplace else. Would that be helpful?
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay.
That would be helpful for me.
Yeah,
I would like to as well, see how
I
bright
think
it
this would be
is.
something totally different in the Four Corners of anything we have.
Yeah, that's
I
what
would kind of bet on that one. I don't think we've seen something
Right.
with that type, that style.
Yeah.
So it would be good. It would be good for us to see.
just because I'd like to see how bright or how much it illuminates out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the lights in that district kind of shine, like would shine up on the chimney and display the sign is kind of more custom, I think, in that customary
Right.
area.
Or sort of the overhang, the.
Down.
Yeah, the gooseneck lamp light.
Well, that's the look for making it a more historic preservation area. You
Sure.
have that kind of lighting that looks a little more.
It's a nice
in line.
spot for a sign. I mean, I agree with that. Just curious to what it would look like.
Yeah,
is all.
yeah, that's,
Can I ask, so in the center of the chimney, there's, you have your cursor on it with the additional lighting. Is that part of the fixture? Because I am imagining that this is going to be battery or solar powered. LED being affixed to a chimney, there's not going to be an electrical source for you, right?
No, it will be electric.
So
source.
is that horizontal bar part of the light fixture where the
I
electricity?
think this line right here,
It's just, I think
just-
it's directing to the.
it's showing,
the text.
Yeah, I don't think that's part of it.
yeah.
So this is where I think a spec from the sign company could be very helpful. So if the applicant's okay with me communicating directly with the sign company, I can certainly reach out to them and tell them what the board might need as far as more detail. They often have a construction spec, so they can show you sort of how they're fixing it, where the wire would run.
And they did have an example from somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
So they do have that.
Okay.
That
Can
would
I
be
ask though,
beneficial.
what the purpose of it? Because it's not in the front, it's in the back, it's in the parking lot. What's
The
what do you feel you're
purpose
getting
was
out of it?
offered by the sign company. I personally liked it. I think it will look great on the entrance of all the customers coming in. It will stand out to the business. So obviously it was good timing because we are going through through you guys. So, yeah, I mean, it's, didn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, okay.
And just out of curiosity, I know this is a 42-inch round sign, and it definitely fits on the chimney,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
It's the same size as the previous, just lit.
Got it.
Well, LED.
LED. Okay. Thank you for that.
And the black channel is, I guess, to the back.
Are there any other questions?
So we can go back to the other sign?
I sure can, yes.
So is that the Liberty Street one?
That appears to be the Liberty Street one.
I mean, it looks kind of funny superimposed on there. It's not, it wouldn't be that big. It'd be the same size as what's currently, and it would be smaller,
It,
wouldn't it?
the 36, I believe, 36, the Liberty Street is smaller than.
This one is this
is
one appears to be
60.
the one that's on Penfield Road.
Right.
Okay,
This larger
yeah,
one.
right.
It looks small on the road, but they're not small.
So it's going to fit on the square placard. It's not going to, the circle's not going to hang out like that.
It's going to hang the same way it used to. It's the same sign, just it's
Okay,
drilled, but it will, I think it does hang out,
okay.
because.
It'll look like it did for 1778.
Yes.
Only guacamole. I was thinking about the Liberty one. Did you make one up, the one that takes you into the parking lot? Because that was.
So that was still
Conversation.
there, the same, just smaller, I think it's 36 inches. That's definitely smaller lit. I'm using just the same thing that was there. That's it.
If it would be helpful to the board, I can provide the documentation that was provided when it was 1778, so you can see that it's the same, the previous applicant. So if that's helpful for you to see, I'm happy to pull those files.
No, I don't need to see it. We see the signs.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're done.
All right, so I think then that we can go forward and approve. Yep. And would we include the sign package? Would that accept for the chimney sign until we get more information?
Well, couldn't we approve the sign package, but, if the lighting is so intense or something, if it doesn't meet what we look at, I mean, you could still have the sign, but without that light, you would want that, right? You still want to have that sign there, a
Yes.
sign like it.
The sign, the previous without, I think they had a lit from the ground before. That one.
So could we have a resolution with it, the whole sign package, but to specifically wait, or do you want to keep that out?
You mean on the, until we decide about the lighting? Can we do that properly? Can we put a resolution together to approve the entire sign package, and then if we have an issue with the backlighting, the lighting of the sign being too much?
So
Right.
what I'll do is, I think it'd be worthwhile checking with the town attorney on the way to proceed. What might be cleaner and easier is to approve all other signs except
Okay.
for the chimney, and until the applicant or the sign company is able to provide more detail for this board to determine whether they like or dislike, or would approve or disapprove, not approve, the backlit channel lighting version of the sign. And this way, the applicant is not installing one type. I don't think they're the same, I don't think they're two different sign types.
That's true, yeah.
So I think it'd be cleaner and easier to allow all the building mounted and freestanding, except for the chimney signage, and have that one hold until, and you can do that, then an administrative review of that one sign, once we have more information from the sign company.
That sounds good.
I would agree with you also, and I think that that's fairly consistent with how the Zoning Board of Appeals would handle something like that with the sign package as well.
Okay,
It also allows the owner or the applicant to really start moving along. So I feel that that's cleaner, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
I agree.
Okay.
I'll make the motion then that we move ahead with this two signs on the road in the front, and then the one on the sign on the fireplace, that we hold off until we see exactly the criteria in that sign.
And the conditional use permit as well.
Yeah, we need to set a resolution.
Yep, and we move ahead with the conditional use permit as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilperson Draw, a second?
Second.
Second from Councilperson Ockenden. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you again for coming back this
Thank you
evening.
very much.
We really
And I'll coordinate
appreciate
with the
it.
applicant so he knows what the next step is, and timeline-wise.
And about the food truck, even though we.
Yes.
Yes,
Food truck will-
we'll clarify that all, and his next steps will be now working through the building department to get the permitting required, so,
Right.
wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us know when you're opening up.
I know.
Yes.
We're waiting.
Certainly will.
Made my daughter very happy.
It's coming. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Me too.
Okay. Item F. Mr. Valentine.
You got it.
Or Miss Ivers, whoever would like to do it.
So this is a sidewalk Waiver request. So right now, this is the Welch's Farm Market, 1271 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. The Vendel family is looking to build their single-family residence behind it. So as part of any new development, any new construction, our code requires sidewalks to be installed along the frontage and as well as any internal road. So right now, it's a single-family residence, so the only thing that would apply would be along the Route 250 Fairport 9 Mile frontage of their property. The board has set precedent that it did waive the sidewalks for the Barclay development to the north, as well as the Abington development, which is also to the north, and both of those paid into the sidewalk waiver fund. You can leave this up and we'll come to the dollar piece. So we do have a formula set up for it. So as we go through, and this is something the board established in the past, is basically, thank you, Carrie, we set up an Excel document that basically looks at what's the subdivision, how many lots are there, how much, and this is to try to create balance between developers of how much you pay, no one's unduly burdened by it, try to have an equal share costing with it if the board is considering doing the waiver. So as you walk down through the green items, how many lots are there? What's the frontage of the property? What's the right-of-way internally, whether it's residential, commercial? And then we based our costs off of what the county bid price is. So each year, the county goes out and bids what a lineal foot of 5-foot wide sidewalk is. So they haven't done it for 2022 yet, so this is the 2021 dollars, but it's $47.50 each foot of a 5-foot wide sidewalk. So again, just to have consistency, so we do that. So typically, we look at if a waiver is granted, it's 50% of the construction cost. So a total cost would be just over $14,000. The 50% waiver fee amount is just over $7,000. But we've also put in there a cap that no lot pays more than $5,000 individually to that. So this one, being only one parcel, one lot, would hit that cap of the $5,000. So if this board, looked to grant the waiver, $5,000 would be due at the time the building permit is issued for the house. The one caveat that I have, and then if Carrie's got that other sketch that she had up, and we had asked, right now he's considering one home. As I said, this abuts, and you can see the stub to the north. If you slide down just a hair, that's the stub in Abington. So as part of when the Abington development was done, there was consideration that this lot to the south would be developed. They left a stub there. There's utility stubs there. He's bringing that in. He's currently not looking to utilize that. He's looking to come through his own property. But if this board was looking to grant the waiver, I would have it with the stipulation that if and when they came back with additional development, they come in with a road, have a cul-de-sac, have another access road out, that you have the ability to come back and review that waiver at that time. So this is not a one and done. Yes, for the single family house it is. If he comes back in and gets a 10, 12, whatever lot development, the board can then relook at it at that time, because Abington does have sidewalks internal, and it may make sense just to have the sidewalks installed and not, grant a waiver with that. So if that all made sense.
No, that seems very reasonable. I think that would be the only way I would support it, is if we weren't shoehorned into a corner or backed into a corner and could never revisit it again. That's just, we have to allow for the fact that things change.
Make it clear to the applicant that it's not, hey, we got our waiver and we're done forever. Obviously, circumstances change, more subdivision, more development. One, it may make sense to have sidewalks installed, and two, if a waiver was granted, it'd be a chance for this board to revisit that decision.
Are there any questions for Mark?
So if the board is in favor, you typically vote on it. We haven't done by resolution. Typically, I send a letter to the applicant informing of that, but you'd still take a vote to, authorize me to send the letter granting the waiver, and then we document that in the files, share that with the building department, and then when they come in with their building permit application, it pops up in their information, or they contact me and say, yep, what fees are due, the sidewalk waiver fee would come up as part of that.
Okay, so I would ask for a motion to grant a waiver for the sidewalk waiver request, and then Mr. Valentine can go ahead and work with the applicant to develop a letter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilperson Lee, second by Councilperson Cole. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Thank you. The next item is we had received, you may have to rotate this one if you can, money through the CDBG, so that's the Community Development Block Grants. We're actually starting to work on some ideas for 2022. That application is due shortly. Be working with the supervisor on that. But what we put in for last year when we were doing, as we have come before this board many times, doing stream cleaning, we were doing some cleaning in that neighborhood down to Willow Pond. As we got up to the end of it, found that the culvert that goes under Courtshire Drive, that kind of drains from the back of Wegmans down and then through Willow Pond neighborhood to Willow Pond is not in great condition. So they're actually on the side of the road. There were some holes in it. We had our sewer department televise it, look at it, and say, yeah, it's not in great condition. So through that community development block grant, we were granted money through that group to replace the culvert. We've done the design. We've got the specs. This, shows the CAD file, and then we've got bid specs with it. So just looking to the board, if you're ready to go out to bid, put that together, bid it out now so we can have a summer construction, and that way we don't have school buses. Hopefully there's less traffic. We will work with whatever contractor to make sure it's open, at least in one-way traffic. They'll have to plate the road, but times of day it may be alternating one-way traffic or stuff with that, but at least if we cannot have school buses and other stuff in the area, it just makes sense. So
I know we talked about this a lot quite a couple times last year
So just looking to see if the board is ready to go out to bid for it. So just be an action to put it to bid, and then we'll work to set that bid date, and then go ahead with hopefully an award at some point if we get good bids on it.
Do you want us to move and act on that?
If you just take a vote to move to send it to bid, then
Okay.
we'll be good to go.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move it that we go the process of the Courtshire pipe replacement.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilperson Draw, second by Councilperson Ogden to move forward with the bid process. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. And I apologize if I forgot to ask if there were any further discussion or question. Did I get everyone's comments in there? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, moving on to the informational items portion of our work session. Our Director of Developmental Services has a conditional use permit application that they would like to just give us a heads up for. This is all just information purposes
It's just for
only.
information purposes. We knew it was coming. It hadn't been received in time to be added to tonight's work session agenda. But the operators of the Acadia CBD location, which is also at 2118 5 Mile Line Road, they're on the side space. They're looking to relocate across the street to one of the open spots in the plaza at 2135 5 Mile Line. So that will need a conditional use permit through this board. And I just wanted to share that with you. I know that the applicant has indicated they're planning to relocate the business. I'll be following up with them just to make sure that they're clear on explaining that they're not opening two locations right across the street from each other. If they have control or lease obligation at the current site, what their plans for that would be. And that would be a separate application should they have some plan of action there. But I also wanted to share with you that they did communicate that they are going to be pursuing that the state licensing for dispensaries, for cannabis dispensaries, has not been released yet, but I think they're hopeful that they could be a location, and I've been very clear with them that the process for the state identifying where dispensaries can be located hasn't been finalized, and then beyond that, the town hasn't made any determinations about how and where dispensaries might be located here in the town of Penfield, and that location may or may not be eligible either by the state standards or by any future changes that the town board might make decisions the town might make related to cannabis dispensaries
Right.
location. So
Probably shouldn't even talk about that yet.
no, but I think we, as a board, probably need to, we can't do anything until the state releases their licensing requirements. And my understanding is that there is going to be some type of land use limits with respect to the state's ability to grant a license based on some thresholds or parameters around where the business is located. And then my understanding as well is that the town will be asked by the state, yay or nay, or what's your thoughts about the licensing? And then we'll have to work with the town attorney to determine what additional zoning controls or zoning regulations, if any, the town might want to move forward with. So just things to be thinking about, maybe so that the town is in a more proactive position or stance. I'm trying to keep tabs on the state's movement. Right now, there's a website in some of the places that's a check back soon type of a thing. They don't have documentation out there with respect to the regulations for land use controls.
This Arcadia going into the plaza, what left the plaza?
Flower Barn, I believe?
No, not the Flower Barn. What left is the Julie's dress shop.
Oh, forgive me, yes.
What I was going to ask about too, Carrie, is when you mentioned this, that they're moving over there, as far as parking, they've had access to a lot of parking behind where they are right now, behind Joey, all in there. That's a pretty active plaza with the restaurant in there, the Flower Barn, and I'm wondering how much parking, if there's going to be any parking issues.
So certainly as part of the conditional use permit application, that would be something that gets explored.
Okay.
We haven't had a chance to, we just received it. We'll have to take a look at, from a zoning perspective, to see if it meets the, parking regulations as far as, does the site accommodate all of the users and provide ample parking? So we'll take a look at that, and we'll have more analysis as it moves forward. But this will be an item on the next work session to set the public hearing associated with the conditional use permit.
So Carrie, the operator understands what
They
you
understand they are
explained.
just they are trying to relocate their CBD.
Okay, so that doesn't hinge on their decision
No.
to want to move to the plaza?
No, they want to move the business to be able to have a bigger space and be in a plaza setting.
So I appreciate you being upfront with the applicant to discuss the fact that, there's a lot to be determined with cannabis.
Yep.
And I know the town is going to want to take an active role in that process. So, this is certainly not something that's happening next month
Right.
at all. Okay, great.
Yeah, so in this case, the conditional use permit application is simply to relocate their business from one spot to another
Okay.
and not to expand the business type.
So we'll look forward to seeing that on the February 9th agenda. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Second informational item is discussion regarding allowing vendors to operate within town parks or facilities. And I asked that this be, I added this on as an informational item because I did receive a phone call from a vendor of a food truck who wanted us to reconsider having food trucks on town parks, at town facilities. And right now, we don't allow that at all. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to entertain a discussion about that and open that up. I think that if we did that, we would have to have some sort of a process or permitting. We can't just, or we'd have, it would be chaos.
Wasn't, I thought, at the end of the year, that our past supervisor and our past director of developmental services, and I'm not sure who else, were meeting to talk about this, to bring it to us, to have further discussion, kind of look about what it would entail, what other towns are doing,
Right.
get all that information together. So, I don't know, you can check on that, see how far they got. And
I am happy to do a little digging and make a phone call to find out what information had already been gathered. And then to the extent that my predecessor either had started that process or maybe didn't, can pick the ball up and maybe provide you with examples of what other communities are doing or other processes that, pros and cons of what works or doesn't work as it relates to allowing private businesses, food trucks to operate on public town-owned property.
There was no note left on my desk.
Okay.
Because I, for one, Carrie, would like to know what other towns are,
Right.
as far as, especially the parks, the town parks, what they're doing, where, if they're having food trucks, is it just for an event? Is it a Saturday, Sunday? Is it, they can come whenever they want? They get to pay a permit?
Yes.
I'm happy to
Special
check with
permit for
other
events,
communities. I know in other places, the city of Rochester had a pretty well-defined permitting system. Their locations were more on designated public rights-of-way locations where you could have food trucks pull up. But I'm certainly happy to check with other towns, because that was, 5 or 6, no longer than that, 8 or 9 years ago, that we were looking at the city of Rochester as a model for how they were handling it. And now, since then, other communities may have developed new or different approaches. So I think it's worth taking a look at to see what other people are doing in Monroe County, and then maybe even beyond, if we have to extend beyond that.
Right, and legal is very important, because if you have some business that's going on to public property and something happens at that, through that business that's
Sure.
bad, then it's us, right? The town is.
Well, it could
so
be.
we gotta
That's
have
a
some
great
kind of
question.
relationship there to.
Yeah.
And then what the liability are, what kind of
Exactly.
insurances are need to be on file.
Right. And I have no problem returning the phone call to the resident and just letting them know what's ahead in terms of a process. But I think it behooves us to, revisit those decisions periodically.
Sure. Agree.
Right? Okay, great.
I have a question. Did they specify which Penfield facility they'd be interested in? Because I just can't think of a business district, or at least a public entity, that would generate the traffic flow that they would desire.
It was LaSalle's Landing Park.
Oh, okay.
Fishermen.
I see.
Yeah.
Right.
So in LaSalle's Landing, there's a lot of drive-by traffic. That's a very high-volume road, so just from a visibility standpoint. I know in other communities, sometimes the food trucks wind up making deals with local private property owners.
Right.
And they're there on a Saturday, or they're during the lunch hour in the church parking lot, and it becomes sometimes an enforcement issue, potentially, if either the code is gray or the code is very clear. It's better probably to think about whether or not they should be or not be.
Well, that's a good question, as we talk about reviewing the code periodically. Is our code keeping up with that kind of endeavor?
Right. A lot of codes are, yeah. We are not alone.
We are not alone. Okay. So next one was just an update of businesses coming in.
Yeah, so what I thought I would just keep this in on as an open-ended item, so that if there are new businesses, new things opening, I will share with you that I am going to be actively participating with the Penfield Chamber, their monthly meetings. They are, the committee is actually going to be really proactive in trying to generate new membership and reaching out to incoming or new businesses. And so one of the things I've committed to is there's a Google Doc or a sheet or something that we all can have, everybody has access to with the Penfield Chamber. And I have indicated that as new businesses are open and receive their permits, I'm going to provide that information to them so they can have that information as quickly as possible. I think the last time I was here, I reported a couple of new incoming developments. I think right now, anything I'd be sharing with you, we just talked about as part of the approval process. So nothing new beyond what's in front of us. But as new things come through the door, we can let you know how things are going and when new businesses will be ready to open.
I like the fact that you are developing a partnership with the business chamber and letting them know of what's coming in. I think that's really important. So thank you for that. Is there anything else? Okay. I actually think that was the end of our agenda for this evening. Is there any old business? New business? Okay. Our next work session will be February 9th, 2022. And I would like to have this meeting adjourned at 8:01 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And motion by Councilperson Draw, second by Councilperson Ockenden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting will stand adjourned at 8:01. Thank you. And